Before dawn, on a railway platform at the very edge of India, a small boy waits for a train that will never stop. It only slows down. So when it passes, a bundle of newspapers is thrown from the moving carriage, and it's his job to catch it. He is 8 years old. The year is 1939, and the world has just gone to war. He collects tamarind seeds and sells them to a shop on Mosque Street for a single anna. He catches those newspapers for his cousin. Every coin goes home. But before the bundle is gone, he reads them. Books are scarce in his little town, so he devours whatever he can, chasing the headlines of a nation fighting to be free. The boy who delivers the news is quietly falling in love with it. Because his family, once wealthy traders, has lost almost everything. His father is a boatman who ferries Hindu pilgrims across the water and an imam at the local mosque, a man with no schooling and enormous wisdom. The boy is not the topper of his class. He is quiet, ordinary, poor. His name is Avul Pakir Jinalabdin Abdul Kalam, and one day the world will call him the Missile Man. He will build rockets. He will become the president of India. And 100,000 people will one day stand in the rain to say goodbye. But this is not the story you know. This is the story of the struggles behind it, the ones almost nobody talks about. To understand the man, you have to meet the people who shaped the boy. In the 5th standard, a new teacher walked into his class. He saw young Kalam, a Muslim boy, sitting in the front row beside his closest friend, Ramanatha Sastri, the son of the high priest of the Rameshwaram temple, and he could not stand it. He ordered Kalam to the back bench. Both boys wept. And when the priest, Ramanatha's father, heard what had happened, he summoned the teacher and told him plainly, "Do not spread the poison of social inequality in innocent minds. Apologize or leave." The teacher stayed, and he changed. Then there was his science teacher, Siva Subramania Iyer, an orthodox Brahmin but a rebel at heart. One day, he invited Kalam home to eat. His wife was horrified. She would not serve a Muslim boy in her kitchen. So the teacher served the boy with his own hands and sat down beside him to eat. He invited Kalam back the next week. This time, his wife served the boy herself. It was this same teacher who once took the whole class to the seashore, pointed at the birds wheeling over the waves, and showed them how a wing lifts a body into the sky. That day, a poor boy from a fishing town looked up and decided his life had something to do with flight. At home, his mother often gave away her own share of food so her children could eat. This was the soil he grew in. Poverty, yes, but also honesty and a stubborn refusal to accept that any door was permanently closed. The dream was simple, and it was enormous. Abdul Kalam wanted to fly. He clawed his way through school, then a degree in physics, before realizing physics wasn't his path. To chase the sky, he needed engineering. And so he won a place at the Madras Institute of Technology, the finest in the South. But a place is not the same as a way in. The fees came to around 1,000 rupees, a fortune his boatman father simply did not have. And then his sister, Zohara, did something he would carry with him for the rest of his life. She took off her gold bangles and her chain, nearly everything of value she owned, and pledged them so that her brother could study. He would not waste that gift. He swore he would win a scholarship and buy back every piece of her jewelry, and he buried himself in his work. Then came his one shot at the sky itself. The Air Force was choosing pilots. He traveled to Decoded and was tested against 25 others for 8 places. He came 9th, 1 rank. That was the entire distance between Abdul Kalam and the only dream he had ever had. He walked out and stood at the edge of a cliff, a still lake far below, everything he'd wanted lying in pieces. Then he made his way to Rishikesh, to the banks of the Ganga, searching for some way to begin again. There, he met a monk, Swami Sivananda. The old man asked why he carried so much sorrow, and Kalam told him the truth. He had failed. And the Swami gave him words that would steer the rest of his life. Accept your destiny and go forward. You were not meant to fly for the Air Force. What you are meant for has not been revealed yet, but it is waiting for you. Forget this failure. It was the very thing that had to happen to lead you to your real path. The bitterness lifted, and the boy the sky had turned away made a quiet decision. If he could not fly the machines, he would build them. He joined India's Defense Technical Service. He came under the wing of the space visionary Vikram Sarabhai, and in time, he was handed the project that would define him, India's very first satellite launch vehicle. The man the sky rejected was about to reach for space. For nearly 10 years, Abdul Kalam led thousands of scientists toward a single goal: to put an Indian satellite into orbit on an Indian rocket built with Indian hands. August 1979. He is the mission director. The countdown reaches its final minutes at Sriharikota. Then, at T-minus 4 minutes, the computer halts the launch. It has detected a fault. His experts assure him the fuel reserves are fine. The decision is his and his alone. He overrides the computer. He launches. The first stage fires perfectly. And then, in the second stage, the rocket loses control. Instead of reaching orbit, 10 years of work plunges into the Bay of Bengal. The world's press is waiting, and the failure has a name: Abdul Kalam. But something happened next that he would remember for the rest of his life. The chairman of ISRO, Professor Satish Dhawan, walked into that press conference and took the blame himself. In front of the world's journalists, he said, "We failed, but I have complete faith in my team. Next year, we will succeed." He had shielded his project director from the entire weight of it. And when he found Kalam alone afterwards, crushed, he didn't lecture him. He took him to eat. He never even mentioned the failure. Next year, 18 July 1980, the same team, the same man, tried again. This time, the rocket flew. Rohini reached orbit. India became one of only a handful of nations on Earth that could launch itself into space. Later, when a shy Kalam worried he wasn't dressed well enough, in an ordinary shirt and old sandals, to meet the Prime Minister, Dhawan told him something he never forgot: "You are beautifully clothed in your success." After that, Abdul Kalam did not stop. In 1983, he was handed a mission that most nations attempt one weapon at a time. India asked him to build 5 all at once. Missiles for land, for air, against tanks. A short-range one called Prithvi. A long-range one called Agni, fire. He didn't just build missiles, he built India's ability to build missiles. In 1998, he stood at the center of the Pokhran nuclear tests, and a boatman's son became a household name: the Missile Man of India. Then, in 2002, the nation asked him to be something more. Abdul Kalam became the 11th president of India. He was the first scientist to hold the office. He gave away his salary. He wore simple sandals in the halls of the presidential palace. He filled his pockets with pens to hand to children who asked him hard questions. They stopped calling him the president. They called him the people's president. And at 74 years old, decades after the Air Force turned him away, Abdul Kalam finally strapped into the cockpit of a Sukhoi fighter jet and flew. The sky that rejected the boy saluted the man. He never stopped teaching. On 27 July 2015, standing in front of a hall full of students at IIM Shillong, mid-sentence, doing the one thing he loved most, Abdul Kalam collapsed and was gone. Over 350,000 people came to say goodbye. That is the story the world remembers. But here at Dollars Decoded, there's one part of it nobody ever decoded, and it's hidden inside a number. Here's a question you've probably never asked about Abdul Kalam. What did it all cost? Because building rockets and missiles is one of the most expensive things a country can do. The world's great powers pour tens of billions of dollars into their weapons and space programs, entire national fortunes. India, when Kalam started, was not a rich country. It was a poor one. The same poverty he was born into, just written across a whole nation. And it got harder. After India tested a nuclear device, the world's powers didn't send help, they sent sanctions. In 1987, the wealthy nations formed something called the Missile Technology Control Regime, and they used it to lock India out. The components Kalam's teams needed, denied. The technology, off limits. The message was simple. You cannot buy your way to the top, and we will make sure you can't. Most programs would have died right there. Kalam's team did something else entirely, and it turned into one of the greatest money lessons in the history of engineering. When the world refused to sell India the parts, Kalam's teams simply built them. Every single one. The guidance systems, the materials that survived 3,000 degrees on re-entry, the components no one would ship them. They made it all, indigenously, from scratch. And here is the number. That entire program, the one that built 5 missile systems and made India self-reliant, was sanctioned at roughly 389 crore rupees. To build not one weapon, but the capability to build a whole arsenal for a fraction of what a single advanced program cost the wealthy nations that had shut India out. This was the philosophy Kalam burned into a generation of Indian scientists. Not spend more, get more from less, turn every constraint into an invention. And that idea outlived him. Look at what it became. In 2014, India sent a spacecraft all the way to Mars and became the very first nation on Earth to reach Mars orbit on its first attempt. The cost? Around $74 million. The Hollywood movie Gravity, a film about space, cost more than $100 million to make. India reached the real red planet for less than it cost to make a movie about space. Kalam was alive to see it. It was his philosophy flying. So here is the money lesson from the life of Abdul Kalam. The world will tell you that greatness is bought, that you need wealth and connections and the best of everything to build something that matters. Kalam's entire life is the proof that this is a lie. A boy with one anna in his pocket became the mind behind a nation's rockets. A country that was shut out and sanctioned built its own arsenal and reached Mars for pennies on the dollar. The constraint wasn't the obstacle. The constraint was the edge. Scarcity in the right hands doesn't stop innovation. It forces it. But the greatest return Abdul Kalam ever generated can't be measured in rupees or dollars. He spent the last years of his life in classrooms, handing pens to children, telling them to dream. He poured himself into millions of students, and every one of them is still out there, compounding. That is the highest yield investment a human being can make. Not in things that break, but in people who build. A boatman's son taught 1 billion people that where you start has nothing to do with where you can go. That's the money behind the magic. If this one meant something to you and to the person who asked for it, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.